play on?
Well, when he's got a cold, for example, and, you know, when he's physically not that well, definitely impacts his performance. I mean, if you look at his performance this tournament, it's actually been, for his standards, pretty poor.
Yeah.
I think the cold has had something to do with it. So Anish is going to have to hope that that's still lingering. But just to reflect on what David was saying, I see absolutely zero universe in which Anish goes for it in this game. He is going to try and find a way to bore his way to a draw.
Critical moment.
Critical moment.
Already?
We've got a spicy opening, though, so...
It's Jovanka's opening.
It is my Caro-Kann, and Anish has chosen quite a dynamic line called the Panov Botvinnik. And here it's in Magnus's hands. What does he want to do? Does he want to develop the light square bishop and take it into an endgame? And no, he kind of goes for one of these moves that is the specialty of the English grandmaster, Jonathan Spielman.
Yeah, so Black's A-pawn push, quite rare in general. There are more popular alternatives, but he has encouraged Anish to clarify the centre. And it's another isolated queen's pawn. That's the theme of the day for Anish Giri today, so far. And pressure on the Black Knight. What would you do here, Jovanka? You're the resident Caro-Kann expert. That Black Knight in the centre, would you move it? Would you exchange it off for White's Knight? Or would you maybe just solidify it, defend it?
I probably would solidify it, although I don't actually play this particular line. But I can see that you can develop the dark square, light square bishop, or you can just push a pawn forward. But just checking my database, I'm going to check and see what the most popular move is. Develop the light square bishop and reinforce the knight.
Yeah, and we should mention Magnus. He's played the Caro-Kann in the past, but actually with very mixed results. His 125-game unbeaten streak a couple of years ago was ended by Duda in the Caro-Kann. He's played the Caro-Kann on various occasions in the tour. I remember a couple of defeats there, as well as some decent wins. But I'm pretty sure he hasn't had this exact position before. Magnus?
No, I'm pretty sure he hasn't. The database certainly confirms that. But I do remember Magnus streaming, and he played the Caro-Kann. And afterwards he said, I really should not play this opening. It doesn't suit me at all. And I was like, OK, Magnus, I take your point.
Yeah, I don't understand, because it kind of, it's right up his street, right? Caro-Kann, you get... generally, you get a good pawn structure, you get healthy pieces, very solid base foundation to work from. But yeah, Magnus somehow results far worse than in the Sicilian, in the King's Pawn openings, from what we've seen. And OK, he does defend his knight with a pawn rather than a bishop. But now White has a slightly better version of some other main lines. Black has wasted time on this pawn push on the edge of the board. So I'm not a huge fan of what Magnus is doing. And like you said, Lawrence, Anish, he has a safety net. He can take that Black Knight in the centre of the board at some point if he wants, and the pawn structure will be completely symmetrical.
All right. We already have a shocking result here in round 14. It's a very quick draw between Richard Report, which we can understand, and Vidit. And this is Vidit reacting to that super quick draw. He played with the black pieces, so I don't know if Richard Report made it just impossible not to go into that. Look at Vidit, because Vidit obviously is right outside top 8. He needs to win his games.
But I don't get his reaction at all. I mean, he played a variation where White can force the draw, so he's only got himself to blame. I mean, he played a Berlin defence. If you want to win a game, don't play the Berlin defence as Black. You can't be upset. Richard did the smart thing. He secured his top 8 position, because Richard still was... OK, he was more or less in, but this is 100% in. So I have no idea what Vidit is doing, actually. Can somebody explain it to me?
Yeah,
no.
I mean, Vidit, he plays pretty much everything as Black. He plays every opening. So, yeah, I agree, Lawrence. Even if you've prepared the Berlin defence for this tournament, you have to adapt according to the tournament standings.
Exactly.
So, OK, he can argue he was Black. Rapport is a fighting player. He didn't expect it. But Rapport did this against Anish just a few games ago, yesterday. So it was to be expected. If he'd done his preparation Vidit, he would have known Report is ready to do this.
But also, you know, he would have, if he checked the results as well, he would have seen that Rapport had beaten Erigaisi and just needed to coast the last 2 games to secure a place. And, of course, Vidit is in a must-win situation. So
It was 100% obvious that Rapport would do this.
Yeah.
It's the practical thing to do. He did it yesterday. I mean, if you look at your opponent's games in just this tournament, you know what openings they're playing. You know Rapport has forced a draw like that.
So Vidit could have played something completely else with the black pieces to make sure
opening.
this wasn't the result.
Just anything. I mean, look at what Magnus has been doing. He's been playing all these funky moderns and French defences where there are very few forced draws. But Vidit played the most well-known forced draw variation in modern chess. So I don't know if he didn't look at the standings. I have absolutely no idea why he decided to play that opening. And now he's in big danger.
He's one of the best prepared players in the world, Vidit, in other openings. Yeah, it's just a strange choice.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of Vidit. I just want to point that out there. I absolutely huge respect for Vidit. I really get on with him. I think he's an asset for chess. I think he's a great ambassador for Indian chess. But I think his reaction is inappropriate.
And he now has 18 points with only 1 point in that game against Richard Rapport. That means he is still outside top 8. If he would have won this game, he would be on 20 points. He could go past Anish Giri. And now he has David Anton chasing from behind, Vincent Keimer and Daniel Naroditsky chasing from behind. With only 1 round left to play for Vidit, these other players are still fighting in round 14. Wow.
Actually, I'm just looking at the previous results, and now Anish Giri, if he draws against Magnus and if he draws the final game against Arjun, he's safe because he beat Vidit in their head-to-head. So Vidit's fate is... I mean, he's relying now on Magnus doing him a huge favour. But this type of opening, it's going to be hard for Magnus to win if Anish has peaceful intentions. I wonder if Anish is aware of those results, actually.
If David Anton wins the 2 final games, he will be on 22.
Yeah.
So then it's not enough for Anish with 2 draws.
Ah, that's true. That's true. OK, so David Anton is the main contender now, maybe, rather than Vidit. So, OK, Anish, meanwhile, retreating his bishop. The bishop was vulnerable on the square. It's still the isolated queen's pawn, and here contrasted to the last game where Anish had an IQP as black. All the pieces were traded off there, and he was suffering for a long time against David Anton. Now, all the pieces still on the board. Big difference. And black's knight now, harassing the white light squared bishop, which is quite a key piece. I think Anish will drop that bishop back.
But I have to say, I'm not impressed by Magnus here at all. I mean, I've done a lot of work on these positions. I've got a number of students who play C3 Sicilians and that sort of thing. This kind of setup can really lead to very dangerous positions for black. For example, you drop the bishop back to c2, and then if black plays a move like b5, you can play a very quick queen d3, and then you're lining up that battery towards the black king. And this is particularly dangerous because, you know, if you ignore this, and this could legitimately just be on the board, let's say you play a move like bishop to b7 here, you're very close to just losing immediately, but it doesn't quite work. I think you're just OK here as black. I wanted to try the move d5, of course, to try and deflect the knight away from f6, so you're just in time. But even in this position, you don't have to go queen d3. You've got knight e5 as a move.
Yeah. You've also got the dark square bishop going to g5, and black has to set up the wall formation with pawns. That's when the pawns put themselves on light squares and make a zigzag. And
yeah, we might well see this.
Yeah, I think we're probably going to see it.
I mean, it's been seen in a number of famous games as well. Yeah, I expect bishop g5 here, g6, and then I expect bishop h6, hitting the rook, rook e8 and knight e5, and then suddenly all the sacrifices become a real knight takes g6, rook takes e6, for example. So it starts to exist. It could be Anish's gold, his what do they call it? Evergreen game of this tournament. If you remember what Shaka's done, right, so far, sacrificing knights, rooks, queens, this is exactly the sort of position, Kaya, where you can do exactly that with white. And do you remember we've been talking about the isolated queen's pawn? This is exactly the sort of setup you want when you have the isolated queen's pawn as the attacker. All the pieces on, great squares for your pieces, great mobility, and then at the right moment, you just find a way to break through that fortress.
But maybe not Anish's style. That's the only one.
Not Anish's style, but he understands but he also understands that he, you know, this is the position that you have to play like this. So.
And this is the current position. The one thing that makes me slightly sceptical of Anish's chances is the fact that earlier he wasted a move playing this pawn push. It's like, why?
Yeah.
You could have used that to develop your bishop a bit earlier on. You could have used it to get your rook into the game a bit earlier. Anish just playing a bit safe, a bit.
When did he play that, actually?
It was just a few moves ago. So it was in this position after black had castled. He just played this pawn
Yeah,
push.
this is a really weird move because you might give your king some space, but the back rank isn't really a concern. And actually, you deprive a key square for your pieces. Often the queen can float to the h3 square.
Later.
A rook can float there. This is actually impedes the white position.
Often you push this pawn the whole way forward. Anish here, I mean, this is basically, like you said, you mentioned the C3 Sicilian. It's basically a transposition to some of those lines. It's a Caro-Kann, but you're one tempo up as white. And it's also similar to a line of the Slav, but you just drop your bishop back. That's the main move. And you basically have the same position as you do in the game, but you've got an extra time. You've got extra time because you saved on this really useless move. So
it's actually totally inexplicable, by the way, this move.
It's
in my opinion. This is like, if you ask Anish what, after the game, what is h3? Let's say he's in a good mood and he wants to talk. h3 is just...
You know what he wants to do, Lawrence?
What?
For example, if black just waits, he just wants to take in the centre and drop his bishop back, and now the black bishop can't come out. And here he would be playing for a draw. So I think that's the only explanation for this.
Such a strange approach. It's just not seen in any literature anywhere on this subject. But OK.
Game position is this one, and we're expecting Anish to try and attack, maybe bring his bishop out, but is it his type of position? That's the big question.
I think, to be honest, when you're Anish Giri, number 4 or 5 in the world, you should be able to play these positions. Yeah. It is it's a well-known structure. It's a well-known position. Thousands of games, and I think to be at that level, you have to know how to play this position. I think his move here, for example, is completely fine.
Is it a chance for him to really prove himself against critics?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, if Anish wins this, then he'll be full of confidence for the knockouts, pretty much guaranteeing his spot there. You mentioned this move is fine, but I like black's reply.
Oh, yeah, knight
the black
c6.
knight dropping back, and now you basically have to trade knights because black's knight also wants to jump to the b4 square, hitting the white queen, hitting white's light squared bishop. And as we mentioned in the last game, exchanging pieces when you have an isolated queen's pawn, it's not a step in the right direction. He's not worse, far from it, with white, but I don't think he's better either. I don't think it's what he could have achieved after, like you said, Magnus's slightly hesitant opening. Yeah, and this idea was seen by Aronian, the Black Knight, retreating just a few days ago in the US Championship, and there was a very quick draw in one of Aronian's games in very similar circumstances. So Anish will have been aware of this knight retreat being an option for black.
Did he want to play knight g4 here? Is this his weird idea?
Going for checkmate.
Yeah.
So black's knight dropping back, and yep, pressure on the knight, pressure on the pawn, and you want to drop the knight back here, hoping for knight takes knight, and then queen takes would be checkmate. He's not going to fall for that, Magnus.
No.
So I guess the idea, if the knight does drop back, would be to go for this stone. What did you call it, Ivanka?
The wall.
The wall.
Whenever I set it up, because I kind of play these positions a lot, whenever I set it up, I'm like, oof, solid. I know I'm weak on the dark squares, but that doesn't matter. And instead, yeah.
That's a nice term.
It is a nice term.
The zigzag wall. Instead, he takes knights off the board.
Is it like a wall with, what do you call it? In prisons, you have electric.
Electric fence?
Yeah, or like
just
pointing at the top of them.
Guess what we're going to see now? We just see it now on the board.
Yeah, no, it's in operation. And the bad news for Giri is that a set of knights have left the board, and that knight was very important in destabilising black's defensive resources on the right. Now, I like black's position, I'll be honest with you.
I think Magnus will like his position as well.
I mean, you can try to initiate another set of trades.
Yep. You can even kick away the white knight sometimes.
Yep.
Black has a few easy moves. You just centralize your rook. You maybe move your queen out the way somewhere. Then you bring your other rook towards the center.
OK, well, Anish is switching tack. He is deciding he relocates his bishop. And perhaps there's going to be some kind of sacrifice on the e6 square. Unlikely. But more likely is actually to push the d pawn one square forward. Yeah, you're right, David. He's in a drawing mood.
Yeah, I mean, this position I can understand why he's in a drawing mood, but maybe some missed opportunities. And I think Anish is a bit nervous. He's failed to qualify several times this season for the knockouts. He's spent a lot of time on the clock. It's move 18, but he's down. He spent half his time. And yeah, you're right, Ivanka. If he plays this move, there'll be a bunch of exchanges, most likely equality. Magnus doesn't want to allow that, though. Magnus wants to fight. And he kicks away the white knight from defending this central post. So now the knight has to move to a bit of an odd square. And yeah, still very tense. Anish unable to get pieces off the board. I don't think he'll be happy with the outcome.
Oh!
Yeah, I mean, it's no surprise the knight is on a bad square.
But, I mean, are there some tricks?
Looks like there are tricks. I think Magnus missed a spot. Could he have played bishop a4 there?
You want to take this bishop?
Yeah, and go queen a5 and attack both bishops.
Double attack, hitting this one, hitting this one. This would force white to trade off another set of pieces, and actually black's bishop is far better than white's. White's is bad, and this is a clear weakness. I think you're right, Lawrence. That was surely the reason why the evaluation bar shot up for black. But
very surprised that Magnus spent so little time on that move, because it felt like a moment where you actually had to invest a bit more to clarify things. And now, OK, you give white half a move.
yeah, I can understand Magnus kind of playing immediately if there's another natural alternative, but this is hardly natural, this rook move. I guess he wants to swing across, start attacking the weak, isolated pawn. But yeah, missed opportunity. And that's where, again, just for Super Grandmasters, having the evaluation bar is so important. If Magnus had seen that the evaluation bar went to, 0.8 for black, he would instantly have known, OK, there's something direct. But he wasn't. He's not privy to that information. So, OK, let's go back to the game. Anish under clock pressure. Not easy for him.
Yeah.
7 minutes down on the clock.
If he loses this game, he will be so nervous heading into round 15.
And this is what tends to happen, actually. Even though Magnus might not have played objectively the best move there, the momentum swings in these isolated pawn positions are quite drastic. If your attack suddenly stops working, like it has here for Anish, you've got a knight on a4, which is a bit awkward, loose bishop on g5, your g2 square is very vulnerable to some shots. You suddenly go on the back foot here, and you're playing Magnus Carlsen, and suddenly you're like, oh, I'm a lot worse. Oh, he's defended everything. Oh, he's won my d4 pawn, and I'm going to lose an ending. And that is a legitimate scenario now. I think Anish didn't show too much experience, actually. It felt like to me that he's just not that well, he's not used to playing these positions with white, even though, of course, he's a phenomenal genius. He hasn't probably had this, because I think most players would have gone bishop g5, g6, bishop h6, knight e5, and not allowed this trade of pieces.
Stuff we showed earlier, yeah.
Yeah.
And again, maybe it's just a repertoire thing. Anish likes to have openings where he has a solid foundation. Here, it's not a solid pawn structure for white. Again, Anish playing maybe the most obvious move, improving his worst placed piece, the rook. But maybe it doesn't get to the heart of the position. He has to be active, because long-term, isolated pawn.
Yeah, and I also wonder whether Magnus's sly rook move also had another hidden purpose to it. Maybe to line up the queen and the light square bishop on the same diagonal and start hitting at the pawn next to the white king.
Yeah, the black queen could go into the corner. Looks counterintuitive, but you're right, Ivanka. It's quite a typical idea in these types of positions. When you have a fianchettoed bishop, a queen often helps it gain power, lined up behind. So we'll see what Magnus does. But yeah, I mean, if Anish doesn't qualify now for the knockouts, yesterday's decisions, I mean, it reminded me, I was at home last night just thinking, and I was like, actually, there have been a few situations in my career when I was younger that I made similar decisions to Anish. I was leading the European Championship in 2017 by half a point, 3 rounds left. I was a bit unwell, so I took a quick-ish draw with white, about 20 moves, and then I lost my next one. And I thought, OK, that's karma. I deserve that. And it's the same British Championship one year. I was really unwell, but I was leading, so I took a quickish draw with black. So against one of my main rivals, I thought that's a decent result. Next day, I got punished immediately. So it's just, I don't know whether it's the chess gods or whether it's our own minds, but he'll have a guilty conscience, Anish, about his decisions yesterday, and that might affect his moves now. And okay, black's knight parking itself in the centre, very sensible.
It is very sensible. I have to say, just to add to David's point, I think it's in our own minds, to be honest, because we see...
You're not religious, believing in the chess gods, Joanka?
Yeah, I believe in the chess gods. Let me just clarify that. But I mean, I was thinking about other players, you know, I mean, I think those people who like fighting chess in general, I think they will feel guilty and it will have an impact on them. Then you have other pragmatic players like Wesley So, you know, who knows how to just play professional chess at the right moment, and then he knows also when to go forth and attack. And it works very well for Wesley.
Yeah, it does. It works very, very well. And meanwhile, Magnus has made a couple of very decent moves, but White now has got his knight into a better square, and Magnus trying to trade off the dark squared bishops. They do leave the board. Some big threats against the white king now. You have to be very careful. The black queen's active. What do you guys think? Sensible stuff from Anish so far, but he needs a good move now, right?
He's going to play queen g3 here, 100%.
I think he's going to try and swap off the queens. Maybe the white knight could step back and attack the black queen.
I think attack the queen.
But
it's way too risky to trade.
What, to play
queens.
queen g3?
Yeah.
Endgame against Magnus with a worse pawn structure.
Yeah, but...
I mean, Magnus has the better pieces, has everything there. No, you don't want to touch that.
Okay.
Keep the... I agree with David. Attack the queen.
Yeah, we can show those two options right now that we're considering. Both of them would be to do with this black queen. There are some indirect threats against this pawn now. The bishop from afar lining up. If white were to play a terrible move here, then the black knight would come in, and this would be disastrous, hitting the pawn this way, and this way 3 times, and this would end in a black win, simply. So white now, Anish Giri needs to stop that. Lawrence is suggesting this queen move. Makes a lot of sense, getting the queens off the board. It's probably roughly level, but I'm just slightly sceptical that Anish will go for this, because this pawn could be a weakness long term. I think Magnus would love massaging an advantage in this endgame later on, if he can. The other alternative would be to attack the queen, kick her away, either with a rook, I'm not sure, this looks a bit superficial, or with the knight, to force her to retreat. But, I mean, wherever she goes, she doesn't even need to retreat. Maybe she'll just park herself on the edge of the board. Black still has control over most of the important squares. Black has obvious moves as well. Black can push a pawn, black can centralise his rooks later, black can move his king. I'm not sure what white does.
Wow.
In the meantime, okay, Anish does go with the rook. He needed to kick the queen away, makes sense. Now, where is she going? Do you think Anish's idea, if the queen moves, is to drop his rook back and
yes.
try to heat and go for a draw?
You're in his mind, David.
Trying to be.
But after rook e4, knight f4 just wins, doesn't it?
Yeah, I was just trying to look for convoluted ways of getting that draw that Anish would probably like in this position. Okay, the queen does move.
Okay.
So this move, we mentioned attacking the queen. Yeah, it doesn't work because of Lawrence's knight move. Hitting the queen and hitting the rook. So we're looking for something else. And, okay, he's really trying to get rid of all the tension, swapping off pieces. And grabbing a pawn, Anish. Maybe we've been too harsh, being greedy here. Shows ambition. He's won a pawn. He's attacking this guy as well. Yeah, maybe it's fine. The knight's never trapped, because it can always retreat to this square. Black's queen now going back to defend this pawn. And Anish has won. Bit of a smash and grab, that one. He's won a pawn on the edge of the board.
He only has 3 minutes on the clock, though. Magnus, almost 12 minutes left on the clock. Do you think this will end up with a winner in this game?
I have a feeling there are some twists and turns ahead, but it's hard to say in whose favour that might be.
We do know Anish Giri is maybe the hardest player in top chess to beat.
Yeah.
He hardly ever loses.
Normally when he doesn't want to lose, he'll find a way to survive. He's very tenacious. He very rarely blunders in one move. But still...
That's true.
A lot of life left. Normally when he loses, it's because he's pushing and then he kind of pulls the brakes at the wrong time and then it rebounds.
And talking about Anish blundering, I mean, this is a very critical moment in the game because there's a big threat on the board, right? The bishop can come down and grab a pawn.
Yeah, let's show this. He's got to be careful. If he moves a rook, for example, then maybe you'll move Jovanka. I think it works, taking this pawn, and if the king moves, you've actually put the king on a bad square, and this is an idea you mentioned quite a lot earlier, the queen on the long diagonal, this is a check, next move, the knight will drop. So you've given up your bishop, but in return you get a knight and a pawn, and you've ruined the white king position.
Less than 2 minutes now for Anish.
Yeah, he's way down on the clock, actually. Look, he's 10 minutes behind, and actually, you know, this is the danger of playing like this as well with white. You get into these tricky positions where you suddenly need to calculate, you burn a bunch of time, and I think Magnus is going to be relatively happy here, actually.
And here he comes.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Your idea, Jovanka, takes his pawn.
Bingo.
But Anish has calculated this. He's hoping that he can, I think, swap off the queens. Either blocking now or by pushing his pawn forward first.
I thought pushing the pawn forward.
Maybe pushing the pawn. And, for example, if Magnus swaps the queens off, then this will go into a dead drawn rook endgame. 3 pawns versus 3 pawns, easy draw. If Magnus wants to win, he's got to play this move, rook takes. I still prefer black, though, because of the king being a bit weak. But Anish doesn't push his pawn in the centre. He tries to offer the queen exchange, and Magnus says yes. Magnus allows the queens to come off. Anish is close to the draw now, surely. It's still a bit difficult for white because all 4 pawns are isolated. Black has 1 pawn island. They will defend each other, the wall. But white's far from solid there. It shouldn't be enough, though, with just rooks on the board.
No, it looks like a draw. Looks like Anish has got what he wanted.
Yeah. Are you surprised Magnus took the queens off? I thought maybe he would try and keep them on if possible. Maybe it just wasn't easy.
Yeah, d5's a good move here. That's the way to play.
Yeah. Giving up a pawn, but he's just swapping off some of his weaknesses.
But,
you go rook a5.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. You can try and pin, maybe not necessarily win.
Yeah, if Anish gets time to trade off another set of pawns, it should be a draw, especially if one set of rooks leave the board. 3 versus 2 on the same side is quite straightforward. It's very elementary. OK, this is the move, the only ambitious move. Magnus doesn't look too ambitious, though, just grimacing. This is a pin on the 5th rank, but the white rook can move. Yeah. This is another pin, and we're headed towards a draw. Black's going to be a pawn up, but you can't create a passed pawn simply. 3 versus 2.
Anish will then be on 20 points. And the big question is, can David Anton win in round 14? He is playing with the white pieces against Arjun Erigaisi. That is the big threat for Anish Giri. And also, if he loses in the last round, then Vidit can also go past him with a win in the last round.
Erigaisi's doing him a favour at the moment, though, beating David Anton. So Anish looks like the stars are aligning for him. He's still a big favourite going into that last round. We're assuming this is a draw, just because black has no real way to make progress. As soon as the black king pops its head out, it's going to get checked and kicked away. As soon as black starts pushing pawns, that will just lead to exchanges. Actually, having split pawns here for white, not next to each other, helps, because it's harder for black to create a passed pawn in these types of endgames. Magnus will try. Not sure for how long, but he'll try and push for a while. I don't really see a winning plan for black in these positions either. I think in a classical game, in a long game, if Anish had more than 2 minutes, Magnus would just play 5 moves and agree a draw.
And actually, we have a result. It's a loss for David Anton to Arjun Erigaisi. That means David Anton is now stuck on 16 points and can max get 19 points if he wins in the next one. Anish is about to go up to 20. So that means it's going to be Vidit or Anish. Vidit, he has to win then in the last round, and he needs to hope Anish loses, right? Because head-to-head...
I did check that 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because Vidit lost to Anish. So Vidit and Anish are the 2 players that will be fighting for the 8th place.
Yeah. So Anish, he'll do the calculations, right, after this game. Assuming he draws, he'll realise that he just needs to draw in the final round.
Although also Vincent Keimer, if he wins in this round, and in the next one, he will also have 21 points.
And Anish and Vincent drew.
And Vincent against Vidit then, if it's 3 players, he lost to Vidit. So that probably means Vidit, if they're all on 21 points.
But Anish beat Vidit and drew
Oh, wait,
Vincent.
that's true. So then it goes to the...
It's like a circle.
Yeah.
It
Who
goes
beat
to
who?
the tiebreak.
And then it goes to the most wins.
Okay.
Right.
So we need our sparkly calculator out.
Yeah, where's my glittery calculator?
Yeah, I know.
We need Ty back. Bring Ty back on.
We'll ask Ty about the details after this round. But David Anton losing in this round means he's out of contention. Anish Giri is probably on 20 points after this round. And Vidit, he is on 18 points after this round. He already finished. 1 round left to play.
Yeah, and the same game, I guess there's just not much to say. White has got the perfect defensive formation. Black's king is advanced, but it's still cut off, and Anish can just wait. Any pawn advance, any pawn exchanges, just guide the game closer to the draw. Lawrence, have you ever had endgames like this?
Yeah, I have had endgames like this. Very difficult to lose. You really have to try hard to mess this one up. Anish is just far too good to spoil this. Maybe there's 1 or 2 little tricks, are there?
No.
Minimal.
There is... No, because even, for example, after king g3 here, David, let's say you play the move g5, which you don't really want to play, but just to illustrate, takes. Let's say white now plays the move... well, you would go down to the back, I guess.
You'd probably go behind and start checking.
But just even if you go rook c4, let's just say...
wait.
Well, let's say black now plays f4 check, king h3, rook f2.
Do you know what I'll play here, Lawrence?
Rook takes
take
pawn.
Rook takes f4. Yeah, this is very nice.
The problem is it's stalemate.
This is beautiful.
But even if white goes passive, for example, this is still a draw. I think your trick was to take this pawn,
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
But unfortunately, this check would go to a drawn king and pawn endgame. This is a draw as long as the king is in front of the pawn. And eventually Magnus will have to try something like that. But even if we try and trick white, it doesn't quite work. And yeah, unfortunately, you can't attack this pawn with your rook. That's the other issue right now. That's why Magnus was trying to sneak behind, perhaps, but Anish says, no, I'm defending this pawn. And just nothing else to do apart from push your pawns, exchange off weaknesses for white. And 2 versus 1, easy draw now. Still no way through. And I think we're going to see Magnus try a few more moves before admitting defeat in his winning attempts. And meanwhile...
And just like magic.
Just like magic, we've got the sparkly calculator, and I'm going to do some maths.
Yes.
Take it away, guys.
We're going to need it now. Anish Giri on 20 after this game, probably. It's going to be between him, Vidit, and maybe Vincent Keimer. If Vincent is able to win in this round, he is currently playing against Hare Krishna. What chances who do you think right now will be the one taking the spot number 8, David?
Mathematically, I've crunched the numbers already.
Yes, very nice.
It's got to be Anish. I think he's in pole position. He's still got his fate in his own hands. If he draws this, a win in the last round, he's there. The others have to win and hope. So all of my tournaments, whenever I'm in those situations, relying on other results, you don't feel any certainty. And OK, Anish, he's going behind with the white rook now. He's going to draw this game. Just give a few checks.
And I should, of course, also mention Naroditsky, who is also on 15 points. If he also wins both in this round and the next round, he will also be on 21 points. But the bar is over to Duda's side in that game. And if he loses, it's over for Naroditsky. These are the current standings. A few games have finished, bunch still going on. And we do see Anish on 19, about to go up to 20 points. Vidit 18. David Anton losing. It's over for him. He's stuck now on 16 points. But Vincent Keimer and Naroditsky on 15, still fighting for points in this round.
And I think we're going to see a draw any moment. The players are repeating moves. Do we have a result there? There we go. Anish might feel like he got away with one.
Yeah, shaking his head. He is definitely aware that this does not secure his spot in the knockout stage. He needs point in the final round as well. And in that final round, who will Anish Giri play?
Arjun Erigaisi.